Big O. I had to leave y'all for a little bit. Get my shit right. I'm back.
Hey, this is JAC Patrissi from Growing a New Heart. We're going to spend a few minutes with my colleagues talking about dialogues across differences. Why don't we start with you, Tanisha?
Hello, I'm Tanisha Arena. I am the Executive Director of Arise for Social Justice, and I've recently begun doing consulting work for Growing a New Heart and hosting my own podcast entitled Unapologetic, where I just unapologetically talk about, doing anti-racist work. Dialogues across difference is a skill set that helps us have these hard conversations that, because the world is how it is and we're experiencing the things that we are, it's absolutely necessary. We're going to have these kind of conversations. I mean, recently we got to see on TV the murder of George Floyd. How do you have a conversation about something like that and everything that it evokes in our spirit? How do we talk about our society becoming more just? And some of those things, they are difficult. And we need to know how to have a difficult conversation with the things that make us uncomfortable. And accepting that just because it makes us uncomfortable doesn't mean that we shouldn't have the conversation.
Some gravy. Can't no one save me. Been thinking lately that we can save the bath water and the baby.
What it is a set of skills I developed about 20 years ago to have dialogues based on the principles of popular education, Paulo Freire's work, across differences of all aspects of social location. But right now, a lot of folks want to use these to have dialogues across differences of race and ethnicity. And we have a former participant who is a dialogue facilitator here with us. You want to introduce yourself?
Hey, everybody. I am Regi Wingo from the Elizabeth Freeman Center out in Western Mass. We are here today really to talk about this amazing facilitative tool. Previous to taking dialogues, right, I'm like, I am a crack facilitator. I do this every day. I've been doing it. There's no topic I'm afraid to touch. When I was driving home, my thought process in the truck on the way home was like, wow, I have been coming at a lot of things with hammers of various different sizes, right? And I can maybe come at them with some other tools, right? And get better responses.
My name is Ed Schreiber. I have a number of different roles. One is the director of the Outpatient Substance Use Disorder Services at ServiceNet. I teach at Lesley University. I teach psychodrama and group psychotherapy. And I'm the director of a small foundation called the Zerka Foundation, named after Zerka Moreno. Dialogues Across Differences is a training about a way to access and live on a platform that exists between me and others, where there's differences. That platform, which you described in the training as the field of peace, it's a bridge between me and others. And it's exceptionally important to have that bridge between me and others when there's these profound differences. It's actually life-saving in relationships.
The act of slowing down and really considering how you language things and how you structure things, right? Drawing people in instead of trying to alienate them with statements and creating a me versus you or them versus us slide. I think whether you are a professional facilitator, whether you are an administrator at a school, a teacher, a social justice advocate, anything in the education human services sector, I think that the dialogues across differences is a very, very versatile and amazing tool to have. And it's super accessible. I mean, it's work. It's definitely work, and you are definitely, I promise, going to have to change some of your ingrained practices, right? But I think it's valuable beyond belief.
Even if you're a little bit afraid or even a lot of bit afraid, go in anyway. What happens in the process is transformational. I've gone through it a few times with different groups of people, and it's something that I'm still trying to find the words to explain in the ways that everything falls into place. We're calling on ancestral knowledge, institutional knowledge, the book things, just every piece of information that you could think of, and finding the value in the ways that we could connect on this bridge and have these difficult dialogues. It's something that I absolutely recommend to any and everyone, and something I would even say should be taught in our schools.
I know that in my work with young people from middle school up to college, especially when you're dealing with things like passed on generational racism, a lot of folks are actually very comfortable where they're at, which is not necessarily their fault, but I mean, they know nothing else. Operating from the field of peace, which like if folks take dialogues across differences, they will, get a much more intimate understanding of what that is. But that is like a very big piece of how we choose to communicate with people, right? Like, are we communicating to share knowledge, or are we communicating to like have a confrontation so that we can leave it and feel right?
One of the things we examine is when to use the skills, when they might not work, what conditions under which to try them, and when it's better to just spend 15 seconds yelling in your senator's face or to go out in the street and say what you need to say. But then there are other times when these skills might really come in handy. People use these with their families. Just want folks to know that.
Yeah, I think a lot of us are finding these days that some family members that we have are definitely not what we thought they were, which is interesting. It makes for interesting holidays and get-togethers.
The most positive impact, I would say, is probably the practical application of the dialogues across difference in my personal life. Like, this is something that you could use in your personal relationships, at the dinner table with your family, and also at work.
You can either get with it or get left behind. Those are the only options at this point.
Those like spiritual, emotional, and intellectual work to do this. And it's a gift to facilitate this way. To really communicate with people this way is a gift.
We'll have information at the end on how you can contact us if you are interested in joining us on Zoom for Dialogues Across Differences to make the world we want. Thank you.
Rooftops loudly screaming, proselytize and prophesize equity for those that listen.